stuff that we've had to do to be provocative enough to have students then engage on another level and think outside the box while keeping our jobs and being able to do D, right? So the greatest activism on here is providing for our families and like having livelihoods to survive this system. But I do, so what I try to do is take A and expand it. And that is not just speak truth to power in college classrooms, but wherever our people are. And our people are a lot of places. They're in parks, and they're at church, and they're at home, they're in jail, they're everywhere. And I think one of the issues that we get into when we rely too heavily on the educational structure is that structure is preventative in terms of really having marginalized people have uplift. So then if you look outside that structure and start to educate outside of it, I think it becomes really powerful, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And again, that's context and area, right? So, you know, what I would give to teach at LA Southwest, but Orange Coast College, a whole different animal. Yes, I mean, even across the way at Santa Ana College, they were like, give us more, give us more. OCC was like, I think I'm gonna report you to the president for what you just said in lecture.
Wow. Are you a student?
I'm a professor. So, and I have been reported to the president at Chapman University.
For what you say.
Yes.
As academic.
I got a letter from the dean and the president and asked for my apology and said maybe I couldn't be trusted to grade that student's paper. So it's all context.
You know, that's the white privilege type stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Orange Coast is more.
Excuse me one second.
African Americans is definitely the minority there, but it's more Latino down there too. I know Santa Ana College is just.
It's Latino and Asian.
You're talking about the Orange Coast?
At Santa Ana College.
Santa Ana,
and then
right.
Orange Coast College is white and Latino and Asian too.
Right. Okay.
But Orange Coast is wealth.
I know, yeah.
So like Newport Beach, Balboa Island.
How long have you been teaching over at Orange Coast?
For almost 9 years now. But I grew up in Santa Ana.
Dr. Andrew Jones is one of my
wow.
Ned Daphne, all them.
I wish he hadn't left.
Yeah.
He was too
And then Orange Coast, they have the incarcerated students program. They do a lot of stuff. So I work with Orange Coast a lot in North Orange Coast Community College District. They're more trying to implement some of their programs within LACCD and other community colleges, Peralta and North. They do some things that are, but I ask myself, why do they do them?
Motives, purity,
See,
morality.
Right. That's why I ask myself why they're doing them and how come.
Why are they building campus housing?
Thank you.
For international students' money, but
Well,
not for incarcerated
students. You know what kind of money international
yeah.
students bring.
Yeah, but not for homeless students.
Right. And see, Southwest has at West LA has a high concentration of homeless students.
Yeah,
right?
and nobody's going to come up with
I brought
campus
organizations
housing.
and people, private sector and public, that wanted to provide housing, but they don't want to address those things. But then when you look at stuff for
international students.
I'm trying, but that's a money thing.
Yeah.
But then I'm trying to figure out how is Southwest, I can see some of the other campuses within the district, how has Southwest been designated a PHI, predominantly Hispanic serving institution?
That's based on census data.
But it's the funding. But when you count and everything's based on numbers and funding for it, right? Southwest lost one grant, they got another grant, and I work over at West LA. So we had a grant over there similar, Title V PBI grant, Project Learn. But now we couldn't keep the numbers, and it's funny, to be designated a certain group, Asians only have to be 22% of what, it's low, it's like 11%, Hispanics are lower, African Americans, you have to 43, 44% of the population be designated that to get additional funding for that demographic of students. So now we're riding off another grant, but it's for a PHI and other races. So we're going from Project Learn to Black Scholars. But I've noticed we had to do a turnaround amongst the staff, weed out all the African American faculty and staff, and bring in some Latinos now. This is something I've been. I addressed this Thursday at our Flex Day event over at it's a cold game.
I work at an HSI at Santa Ana College too. I'm a consultant there for their equity work.
You said a key word.
But here's the problem back to this is, and the reason we have to be suspicious of educational institutions is because they're using corporate models. They're following the money. Anytime people follow the money, they're not going to follow marginalized populations that are looking to be empowered or to raise their standard of living or their consciousness about a system, especially if that very system is what keeps that structure together and keeps kind of housing them and kind of herding them through. And what you're talking about in terms of the funding mechanism is more and more corporate structure in education. And I'm starting to view education institutions as, I know education is supposed to be the leveling, the leveler of the playing field, right? Like, you born in the hood, I'm not, but we can both go get an education and to level everything. But the problem is when it's set up in a corporate structure, then the structure starts to unlevel, dictate, track, give access, use code words that you can access, but I can't, and I don't even know what that means, and you're off, accessing, and then it leads to more inequality instead of less.
That's why tying into this, I agree with A, but I feel like you said, I think it should be on a different level, not just college, but junior high to high school, because like you said, our people are everywhere, but by law, we do have to be in this educational system. And most of us, a good number of us don't even make it to college. So if this was actually pushed junior high, middle school, where the majority of people really be, because I know it's a lot of people, a lot of friends who didn't even finish school, who didn't even pass the KC, but if they was to hear that information early on, maybe they would have wanted to, you know?
But if you speak truth to power in junior high and high school, and then they will take risks, right? Because they have nothing to lose. They will try to destroy the system. And that's why the system doesn't allow people to speak truth to power in those environments that often. If they do, they're always in danger.
That's why it's so critical, because that is, like you said, that's why I agree with you and what Lamont was saying, because if that was taught to a younger people, now their focus is different, opposed to joining a gang or something, who just left the system all the way. That would be a method of empowering youth as far as mine. What should I really be focused on?
Kind of like the brother was saying, it's definitely seed planting, but they don't want the rest of the cultivation, and they certainly don't want the harvest to come. Harvest comes,
just
boom.
enough. Just enough.
And
Which is, so,
Which is a little.
Which is why we're where we are. Which is why we're where we are, but yes.
So this will come up later, and you two know I do it. But my write-in was embrace and liberate the cyborg within you.
Embrace and liberate the
you
cyborg.
can always count on the techno coming. I don't mean to.
And
Explain what you mean.
Okay, this is why it will come up later, because our conversations about I know that we were all supposed to have personal definitions of liberation, and I assumed that we were talking about liberating black people.
Yeah.
Although we didn't expect.
Well, that's why I said so. Thank you. Let me just really tell you. I put as personally defined for a reason.
Right.
But that means we all might have a very different definition.
Right.
And
read the documents that she gave.
Okay.
Some proposals in there. You know what I mean?
Right. Some proposals to that. But yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah. So if we survive the next stage of evolution, if we are not destroyed by nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, ecological problems, starvation, if we manage to figure this out, it's not going to be anything, it's not going to be like the periods we're discussing now, which is not to say that there won't still be some principles that apply, but cyborgs are a very real thing. Like, that's coming. And so there's two different pieces to that. One piece is, I read this really interesting article, I wanted to put it up there, but so did anybody see the documentary blacks in Silicon Valley? Anybody see or even hear about it? You saw that?
I'm working with a tech firm now because that's an issue.
Yeah, because apparently like it blew open a whole bunch of conversations or whatever. So there were a couple of people who responded to it, and one of the ideological responses, which is really almost like a tactical response, was to begin propagating a position called greed over race, right? Which, if I'm not mistaken, is a class position. It's a 1% class position, right? And, these are the same people who are currently in control of designing the technology that will allow them to live into perpetuity. The ones who are trying to live forever right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not a 50 years from now thing. This is like a 10, 15 years from now thing before. Actually, it's like 5 years ago that they could actually almost like read your brain, like images in your brain. You know what I mean? Right, exactly. So, I think the social justice techniques that we are used to engaging are based on an industrial and or like slave-based capitalist model. It's not the same, and it's not the same in the robot world. It's a little bit different. And that's, I think, part of what we're all facing, for instance, in like the nonprofit world or the education world. We don't really need workers like that anymore. So if you really look at colleges, you'll find that your technology departments are probably getting a little bit fatter, and your humanities departments are slowly being whittled down into nothingness. So they really don't care if you can talk anymore, as long as you can code. And I think that technology is very poorly politicized. So that a person can put out an article called Greed Over Race and just get away with it, like nobody said nothing, is a problem.
Well, I can see from a standpoint of someone in the classroom, I know there's a huge push nationally with the new Common Core standards, which would speak to what you were saying earlier, Daniel, about teaching teachers how to teach kids to think more critically and engage in conversation and argue like scholars. But what I find is, I don't know with how much fidelity teachers implement those those kind of changes. And then like you said, does the structure allow for that? Is it like you were saying, is it just kind of like, okay, we can say we did that, but are you really providing the framework and the support system for educators to actually implement this with some sort of authentic change? So I found that in my classroom, even though I have 4th and 5th graders, I emphasize, because at the core of the Common Core is so that they're college and career ready. So not, that idea of not everybody's gonna, but you need to be college and career ready. And I get it down to even just being organized every day, or just how you present yourself or how you're speaking in class. Even though they're only 8 and 9, you have kids that are going into middle school next year, and just kind of giving them that knowledge of what how you represent people when you go out, not only just yourself, but your family, your community, all of that. But I'm the type of person who wants to implement it like that. But I also see that there are a lot of challenges, because at the same time, they give me 33 kids with two grades in one classroom, or they have kids in there, I've integrated them into our classroom community. Okay, now those kids are gone, they're in another classroom. It's just, they're constantly changing the program. So how do I really, implement it?
I have a question. Question, Marco.
Yeah.
When you speak on cyborgs, can you go into a little more depth on that? Like, your idea of what a cyborg might be?
Yeah, let's cover that in the if someone were to answer so what section, because that will come up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to save time, be efficient.
All right, I'm gonna I created this, but then I did actually put a little something in E, although I circled D.
Of course you did. Of course you circled D.
Okay, I'm good. And
said chilling.
Exactly. And I have specific reasons why I circled D. But in E, I said Nation Time, which is the theme of this summit, and basically A through D plus would have to find a way to, be more effective. Like, we're doing all of those things, we're doing all these things already, but we're not seeing the effect want to see in terms of community empowerment, people power, sustainability issues, and all of that type of stuff. The technology issue and how, like shifting of just how everything is going to be run is interesting as well. And that we'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about friendly fascism. But for me, I want to live. And while I'm here living, I want to have a good time. And I want to enjoy my relationships with my people and my family and do what we're doing. And I'm sure that's pretty much what everybody, why it's hard to organize and keep masses mobilized is because that's what everyone is doing, living. Okay, they're busy living, they're busy, finding ways to feed children. They also want to have time to enjoy those kids. They want to, do all of those things. And so, mass mobilization is very unsustainable. All right, and we have to figure out, yes, knowing the problem, knowing the structure, knowing all of this, how still are we going to basically enjoy life? Because what else really is the point in my mind? I'm trying to figure out what else. If I'm going back to the materially bankrupt, if I'm, broke in this system that's a system of iniquity, a system of lack of righteousness, and is a system of evil, I'm not really all that concerned about this system. In my mind, the spiritual thing, it will all work itself out. There'll be a reap sow, and we all collectively reap sow. But what are we doing in the meanwhile? Are we going to be so worried about this system that we're not enjoying life? Are we going to be so worried about, the fact that we're oppressed, that we are, that it has us not enjoying the time that we do have, and that we don't know if it's going to be the question that I had a problem with, but was probably my most important question on here, is because I just don't think, I think that you don't know tomorrow, you don't know the next second.
Right.
I guarantee you when you wake up in the morning.
Not guarantee you're going to leave out this building, quite honestly, you know what I'm saying? And so that, for me, becomes, I kind of focus everything in that kind of manner. If I'm, don't know the next second is coming, am I happy now? Am I doing what I need to do? And that's really it, yes.
You mentioned the term mass mobilization. Mass mobilization worked 100, 150 years ago, so why has things gotten so out of balance that mass mobilization is not working today?
Well, I don't think she's saying it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So masses come together in moments, but sustaining mass mobilization is typically not possible because of the various differences people have. But those differences are actually what bring them together in moments that matter. And unfortunately for true revolution, those differences and those things that matter have to be so dire for huge groups of people to come together and forget about their differences. So that would mean poor white folks, Appalachians, all the Hurricane Katrina displaced folks, real poor Latinos, exploited Asians. Everybody would have to really it would have to be something massive.
Everybody have to be, Professor said it.
So the society is so fragmented now that...
And it always has been, though. But there are those moments in which the fragments don't matter as much as that thing.
And the fragments, I have to be clear on, I'm not sure, for me the fragments are experiences. And so if you have a context, back to what she said in terms of context. So if your context is a certain experience, your context is a certain experience, mine is a certain experience, there's some things that we're going to get together, and then I think there's some things that because you haven't experienced it or I'm not going to get or understand. And is that where we have a problem having a sustained type of movement like that? Because it is hard and instead of just, being yes, your experience, bring that to the table, that is, as valid as anything else, and let's which we'll get into later, let's use all of those things but not let, them separate us. The problem is a lot of them, because of history and because of just, already lived experience, you can't erase. And so there are separations. There are things that are specifically pitted against each other. And that's going to be hard to reconcile into like a, mass people power. Yeah, because, they now exist, these experiences have existed by basically kind of a coin where the experiences you had is because the others weren't able to have that or whatever. And coming together with that is really, really where the challenge has been. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of agree with you as far as focusing on it so much that you're only enjoying your time here. And I feel like that's how we lose a lot of youth interest in it, because the youth, that's what I'm saying, like, and it ties into a later question where you asked what have you enjoyed the most about your life? And I noticed, like, being a youth, and I'll restate my opinion then, but being a youth, you were kind of stress-free, and it was like the main thing you worry about is fun. Even at the age, like right now I'm 23, and most people my age are not on the same mental path, like they're worried about having fun, basically. That's what being young is about, having fun. So it's like, all focus on this causes us to lose a lot of our people's interest, because it's like, well, what's fun about that? Like, why would I do that if I'm stressed out thinking about it? Why would I sit there and waste my time and not, have fun? So
Right.
I think that is very necessary, because everything needs to be acknowledged. Prosperity, you need to be awarded for what you're doing. If we're going to sit here and spend a lot of time on solving the issue, then we should celebrate us on solving the issue. All right, let's actually have this big fair, this big whole community celebration to where kids remember, like, dang. So when the time they take on that stress, they be like, I want to have this event like we did back when we were young. And then it's like, oh, well, what we have to do in order to make that happen? Now you have to come up with solutions just so you can have that event. So now the next children will be able to participate where they're not even worried about what's going on, but they're having fun. And then it makes them remember that fun. It makes them want to recreate it.
I gotta say something, man. I watched you grow, right? You're a rarity, your generation, because you just hit it. And most people your age, man, they're not thinking about the social injustices and everything that's going on. We've had a couple of conversations, so just keep doing what you're doing. I think, keep working with your STEAM and everything. But something's gonna have to be done, because
Well, let's get to that right now. So since we all kind of had a different answer, and that's at this one little table, how are we going to reconcile that with the fact that we can't come to one answer to liberation here at this table, and there's a million other voices and perspectives out there? How are we going to reconcile all that? Yes, go ahead.
I said this in my Facebook discussion. I don't know how many people are in that discussion, and I didn't want to say it when Michael was here, when he picked material and we didn't.
Oh, Crenshaw, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I said Michael. But all of us have our role, right? So the truth in terms of where I'm thinking is, if this brother got material well-being and I got intellectual well-being and you got spiritual well-being, then we can come together and have well-being, right? So I don't really, and this is what I was saying to you in the thread, I don't necessarily think we need that level of unity. I think we need to know our roles, be able to collaborate, so that my strengths gird up your weaknesses or areas of opportunity, and that we learn to share resources. This I think is one of the issues, is truly, with the right motives, being able to have kind of advocacy, activist humility. And that is knowing what we bring to the table and what we don't, and what other people bring to the table. So I think it's important that we all have different answers, and then how do we make that work in terms of leverage for liberation?
Well, that is unity because of the various different ingredients and elements
Yes.
that are making up the end justifies the means.
But for so long, we've wanted ideological unity.
Oh, yeah, I think that's
And I
the key.
think
That ain't
that's
gonna happen.
problematic
That ain't gonna happen.
sometimes.
Yeah, so I think, so to Tina's point, I think that there's a difference between agreeing on that we all perceive the same thing, like to a bare base minimum level, and that we're all going to do the same thing about it, right? So if Tina gives us the address to this place, and I choose to interpret 401 Wilshire however I want to, I might not end up at the actual 401 Wilshire, right? I can be like, well, that's not what I see when I see 401. Well, I see, like, there has to be some bare base level understanding of, okay, this is the part of reality we can all agree on, right? Outside of that, I 100%, not only do I agree, but, so, like the military, because of the expansion of technology and the rapid, like, growth of option it gives, like, so they developed this thing called full spectrum warfare, right? And it's basically everything's on the table, right? It's whatever, whenever. So I'm like, so what's that? Like what's full spectrum rebellion look like? And to me, it's like a laboratory right now. Like everything's on the table. Whatever works, works. Whatever doesn't, doesn't. And it's not really an ideological statement. It's a really practical one. But I actually agree with you on that, Jim. I think that's a good strategy.
Okay. So
But not if you don't think white supremacy exists, though. I can't move you. That's a problem.
Okay. Then we can't.
You got nothing to worry about. You raised a good point.
All right.
All right. Let's move on. And so I decided to. So one of the main questions when you go to grad school, you're doing research, is the so what question. That's what they always ask you. Like you have a question, they'll come with so what, right? Like what does that really bring to the literature or this or that or this or that, right? So there are all sorts of issues and obstacles and realities that are, quite pending in terms of like have some real effects on us right now. But if you take like the fact that they do still, it is what it is and this is how they are, how do we get past it? So how do you answer that so what question? So I kind of answered, other than one, I kind of answered the same to every question. But let's see. Like, sorry, I'm trying to see where to get a family that I know. So let's start with the first one, life's not fair. So what?
Where we at?
The back side of this questionnaire. So what? Life's not fair. So
That's just
what?
the fairs in Pomona.
Huh?
The fairs in Pomona. Not it.
Okay.
But somebody said that to me before.
Okay. What's your answer to that? Life's not fair. So what?
You just have to make adjustments.
Make adjustments.
We gotta deal